All right, well, hopefully they can hop on and join us in a little bit. Before we begin, did everyone get the agenda and the resolution that I had sent out last night? Perfect. Okay. So we do need to just approve the agenda. So we have items to go through. So if I could get a motion for approval on that agenda as proposed, and then a second.
Hey, John, I'm wondering if you let Mayor Councilman Greider, I'm wondering if we should do some names and recognizing of who is actually here, so that if we do approve an agenda, we know the folks that have actually approved the agenda. And on this first one, I would probably take the old business. I'm sorry, folks, he sent this to me in time enough to make the changes, so I'm sorry about that. That's my fault. I would probably take the goals. I would make the old business maybe review of the goals established by the commission, so they know what you've done and the council has done, and then make the rest of it new business from the selection of a chair, discussion and date.
Recording in progress.
Discussion and date of the next hearing. So I would kind of flip-flop things so that it would help in the future.
Sure. So why don't we start with introductions? So I can go first, and then we'll just kind of go through. Jonathan Greider, Ward 2 City Councilor, and I'm here as the council liaison.
Quentin Hart, Mayor of the City of Waterloo. Gwen, you want to start?
Sure. I'm Gwen Bramlett Hecker. I am the Executive Director of the Riverview Center and a resident of Waterloo.
All right, Michael.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Michael Fleming, and I'm at UNI, and I work with the Center for Violence Prevention as Director of Research and Evaluation, and I'm a resident of Waterloo.
All right, Michelle.
I'm Michelle Feltus. I'm co-founder of One City United, and I'm the director of the Momentum Urban Employment Initiative.
All right, Dr. Hayes.
I'm Al Hayes, Emeritus UNI professor and co-chair of the Iowa Justice Action Network. That's one of my hats anyway.
All right, Ms. Teresa.
Hello, I am Teresa Culpepper, and I'm chair of the Waterloo Human Rights Commission.
All right, thank you. Dr. Nafisa.
Hi, I'm Dr. Nafisa Bonye, Director of Blackhawk County Public Health. As you all know, probably, I'm in a transitional phase. And so Caitlin Emmerich, who's the Deputy Director, will be attending future meetings. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Major.
Waterloo Police Department, and also a resident of Waterloo.
All right, Mr. Funches.
Yeah, Abraham Funches, Director of Waterloo Commission on Human Rights, also a local pastor in the area.
All right, and I think we have Chris maybe on from the city. We have using WCTV, I think that's Waterloo Cable Television, I think. Public access. We have Maria Kuiper from the city, from the Courier, and Councilman Dave Bozen from the Waterloo City Council. So I think that's everyone that is on today, all 15 people. Nice to see you, Dave, and John Deere Green today, so we appreciate it. All right. Mr. Greider, if you want to talk about the charter or the goals in old business, well, we need to approve it then.
Yeah.
All right, so we know who's here, and John, is everyone, Mr. Councilman Greider, is everyone here that has announced themselves in the pictures, are they part of the original committee you sent this out to or asked us?
Yes. Yes.
All right, and how many, I'm wondering, do we even know how many you need for a quorum right now before we approve this, or do we get more formalized next time?
There are 12 commissioners, not counting you and me. So quorum would be 7.
Right. So we have 1, 2, 3.
We have 8.
We have 8. All right. So does anyone, just to get an agenda approved, does anyone want to approve the agenda, which has a review of old business, just a review of the established goals so you can understand what was actually sent to the city council. And then for the new business, selection of chairs, discussion of date setting, and just a review of the goals as well. Is there anyone?
I move to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
The motion has been made with the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we have some business to start to discuss. This week is Iowa League of Cities Week. So we probably have about 800 guests that are coming over the next couple of days. So I'm going to try to be here until the 4 o'clock hour, which Mr. Greider has made it known. It is 60 minutes or less right now, but I'm going to try to stick around for the whole time. But just want to let you know if I have to take off, we have guests in town. So Mr. Greider, could you review what was actually done by the city council and why they're here?
Yes, absolutely. So first, I want to thank all of you for agreeing to serve on this commission. So we know that one of the challenges that we have had, not just this year, but in the past, is gun violence in our community. And so I, in conversations with the mayor and some other city councilors, came together with the resolution that I sent out to you that we passed in a special session early in June. And that special session creates this commission, which you are all members of, and it tasks us with several things. One, you are all asked because you have an expertise and connection with the community that we think is vital to this work. So again, thank you so much for agreeing to serve. So the overall goal of this task force is to address gun violence and its causes, with the aim of being able to recommend policy for the city of Waterloo that we can adopt in order to meet the challenge of our times. We understand that this is a difficult and thorny issue, that if there were a simple solution, we would have already solved it. So our task before us over the next year is to meet, to hear from folks, and to come up with a series of policy recommendations that we will present to the council in a work session, and then the council will vote as per the resolution up or down on those policy recommendations. And we want to look at both the short-term as well as the long-term causes of gun violence in our community, which we know gun violence displays in many different ways. And so we have before us a challenge, but one that I think that we can rise to meet. Does anyone have any questions or anything about the resolution? Okay.
All right. Any other comments, anyone so far? Right. Well, as we move to new business, so first of all, I'm not going to be chairing. It'll be somebody else's role and somebody else's goal to fulfill what the Councilman Greider and the rest of the City Council wanted to see all of us fulfilled in this. But I would probably say, just to add to moving to the new business, as Councilman Greider mentioned, gun violence is a serious challenge within our community. And we know that other places have skyrocketed even more so than us, but one person shot, one gun is one too many within this community. So we don't necessarily have a blueprint of how everything will get done or how this conversation is going to go, or the type of resources and things that we may need moving forward. So along this process, we ask for your patience, understanding, and that, like you said, all of you come from a range of different experiences and working with different people throughout the community. And, you know, taking a look at who we currently have here, of course, we'll need to expand and make sure we have some other voices included in this process. But definitely want to thank you for being here. I see we have another person that is on. It is Melissa Hoffman from Amani. So welcome as well. But Jonathan, I think there's some new business. Councilman Greider, there's some new business that also needs to be attended to. And so if you want to go through those portions of it and get a selection and any particular other goals that may have established, so please go through them as well right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we do need to select a permanent chair and vice chair. These are the folks who will gavel us in the session. They'll help sort of lead the discussion. They'll work with city staff and myself to get the agenda sent out to everyone. So they will just be the folks kind of helping run our meetings. So we will have a chair and then a vice chair in case our chair can't be present for a particular discussion. So with that, if anyone is so moved to nominate themselves, or if you would like to nominate one of your colleagues for these positions, now would be the space and time for that. Y'all are just like my students, just wait and hope I don't.
Well, I have two recommendations. I would either recommend, especially in light of what I think I know about the transition, Dr. Ebonye and or Dr. Hayes, if they would accept, but probably too much already on the table.
I got so much on my plate right now. I probably should not volunteer to chair one more thing. Trying to make North End Cultural Center survive and thrive, that's a challenge in itself.
And my last day is October 21st, so.
Hey, Dr. Ebonye, will you be adding someone to this, or maybe hopefully appointing someone if they'd be willing?
Yes, I will be adding someone, and I think that, but I also think about our role as the health department is to be able to provide this support, the evidence-based models, and so there will be some some research that we can definitely do, and so I think chairing and doing that level of research or programming is going to be also a difficult task. So my hope is that we can support in more of the resource allocations and programming.
Dr. Fleming, maybe I can go this way. Dr. Fleming, I know you've done a lot with violence in the past. Would you be available to chair?
Well, I'm very supportive of this work, but I think I'm too new to the table to be able to step into that role. table to this conversation to be able to step into the role of knowing what we need to be setting in terms of the agenda and the direction. Be happy to be a vice chair, but I think we need somebody that has more time in the conversations than I have. More time in the recent conversations than I have, but I'm happy to support whoever that person is. So I'm happy to support you, Abram, in the role of chair, and
Yeah, I appreciate the thought, but I just feel like I'm somewhat overextended right now myself because of various things I've got going on. But I was thinking about Teresa Culpepper. I mean, you were kind of pulled in a lot of different directions too, Commissioner Culpepper.
I was gonna nominate Michelle.
Michelle.
And I can help run some of the logistics. So it's not as if the whole weight of leadership will fall on the chair. It's more of just making sure that we're following the agenda that we put out for each monthly meeting. So don't feel as if like the whole commission just becomes your baby. This will be a group effort.
So
Gwen, as I'm looking at all the squares that have images up on video, we haven't touched you yet.
I was desperately trying to be like one of Jonathan's students and not make eye contact. So, you know.
On my screen, you're up in the corner there, kind of hiding over there in the corner.
I never really noticed how Zoom looks like Hollywood Squares. So do you think, for this first meeting, Jonathan, do you think, Councilman, do you think that maybe a broader conversation of, what people see as some goals would be from this type of task force? And one of the things that Councilman wanted people to know that this is not a already pre-established direction we're headed in. I think one of the things that sometimes government does, they have a prefabricated process or program, but this is pretty organic dealing. But would you like to have a broader discussion for this first meeting and lead them through a conversation about what potential expectations are? Once again, tie back to what you as a city councilman would want to see, and then we take a look at next meeting, kind of formalizing things a little bit more.
Yeah, that's perfectly fine.
Before we get into that, I just wanted to maybe suggest, Jonathan, if you wanted to remain as chair, at least for now, with Michael as vice chair. I mean, you're the one that's put so much energy into this, and as I look at the screen, I see a lot of busy, overextended people. I know we're all supportive, but I think my wife would kill me if I took on one more thing. Okay, so maybe you would be the logical choice on this.
And I'm certainly willing to fill in for now. And if we want to make a leadership change, we have that time. So I think we want to talk about a little bit about goals and what we're seeing. And Mayor Hart is perfectly correct in that the council did not come into this with, we want to see X, Y, and Z come out of this. This is not preordained. What other than we want to seriously address gun violence. So we want to hear from you. I have held a series of summer conversations, one at the library, two of them at Director Funches's Jubilee Freedom Center. Hearing from folks, talking about some of the things that we have done. And I think in those conversations, I've heard several things. So there's the desire for definitely short-term fixes. I know issues such as lighting or the ability to connect to services have come up a lot in terms of the short-term types of things. We've also talked about long-term issues. And I know that folks have talked about how this is cyclical, and things such as ACEs or adverse childhood experiences is something that plays a role in this conversation. The availability of guns plays a part in this discussion. And one of my biggest takeaways is that these conversations should be organic. And while this commission is charged with setting forth direct policies of what can change or how we can better support people, I certainly believe that this conversation needs to happen in the community. And so I think as we are thinking about our goals, and I think it will be helpful coming in to the next session, coming up with a list of 5 to 6 very tangible steps that we want to make sure that we can take away from this, whether that's areas of focus or policies, areas that we want to hone in on. I think that's going to be a big part. I also think part of it is being out in the community, because as I have been in these conversations, folks are hungry for the conversation. Folks are hungry for things to happen. But they also don't want this to just be a pet project where we all pat ourselves on the back for doing something. It needs to be something that's sustainable, and something that's functional, and something that really does help Waterloo. So I think those are also things that we need to think about as we start moving forward, start formalizing some of this stuff. But we called on you because you are experts in various areas. So let your light shine, as the good book says. Whatever direction you think that we should look at, let's have that discussion. I think that needs to be part of our goal setting that we start with next time. Are there any questions or anything that folks want to pull out from any of the conversations that have happened before this? I know some of you were able to be there, some of you were not, and that's perfectly okay. It's not a prerequisite to being here.
Yeah, the only thing that I would like to add, okay, I just want to make sure I wasn't muted. But one of the things that did come out of your conversations, Councilor Grider, was the fact that a lot of people didn't feel as if they were fully engaged, that they were not apparently aware of some of the things that the city is doing and that kind of thing. I've also had a discussion like that with the mayor. But I do believe that it would be advantageous to have someone who is native to the city of Waterloo play a role in leadership with respect to this particular commission. And there are a few names, a short list of people who may have the time to actually engage this process throughout the next 12 months with someone else. But basically, and I think in a nutshell, you and I have visited a little bit about it too. People are unaware. They're saying they did not know certain things, and that might be a function of a few things. But I think it probably would be great to make sure that we are being very deliberate about getting someone who's native to the community.
No, absolutely, Reverend Funches. And we've gotten suggestions from folks, and I think we need to be aware that all the avenues that we perhaps receive information are not all the avenues that everyone else receives information. So we absolutely broad spectrum on how we can communicate with folks, and whether that's, and we'll get into this, I'm sure, as we have our discussions, whether that is communicating about these events or communicating about the services that already exist. There are definitely barriers of communication, and that's something that I think that we'll have to address as we move forward, for sure. So 5 to 6 goals for next session, which sort of leads us into, yes, Dr. Hayes.
one of my personal goals over the next few weeks is going to be doing everything I can to defeat this gun amendment, which is before the voters of Iowa. Because if that passes, that will, in my opinion, seriously hamstring our efforts to deal with gun violence in this community, because it is so broad and basically almost prevents any kind of reasonable regulation. Sorry, the phone is doing here. It prevents any kind of reasonable regulation of guns, either by the state or by the locality. And when I put this coming Sunday at my church, Cedar Valley Unitarian Universalist Congregation, we have an adult forum, which happens at 11:30. And we have invited Janet Carl, who is active in the Iowans for Responsible Gun Laws. And she's going to be informing our congregation about this issue. And this is a Zoom meeting. Anyone is welcome to join in. You don't have to be a member of our group. And in the chat, I put the hot link. All you have to do is click on that, and you can get into our adult forum at 11:30. And I think it's very important that everybody on this committee try to educate themselves about what's going on here. Most people don't realize that this is not just the National Second Amendment at the state level. It's much broader, much more preventive of any kind of reasonable gun regulation. So I would encourage everybody, if you can attend our forum, to at least educate yourself on what's going on here, because it's something that's going to be a problem for us going forward, I think, if we don't try to keep this from happening. So that's just my 2 cents.
Sorry, I didn't mute myself. Thank you, Dr. Hayes. So that leads us into our discussion for our next meeting, as well as some agenda items we might want to have available. I know we just talked about goals. Dr. Abonye, I know that you and your staff had a meeting with area nonprofits, and there was some data that you thought might be helpful the last time you and I talked this summer. Is that something that you and your staff might also want to talk about at our next meeting?
When is the next meeting
Well,
scheduled for?
we can talk about, well, we need to talk about that as well.
Yeah.
So we
So
can,
that's something that the point person can definitely talk about. I'm asking this question because we are preparing to launch a data hub for the community, so that some of the root causes of why there's gun violence in the community, the data will be accessible to the community. And so
okay.
yeah, so and I think that is towards October and November. So
Okay.
yeah, I can follow up with you on that. I think my question to the team is, if there's a opportunity to also take a step back to assess, like, what are some of the resources, so I think that there's a good understanding of why gun violence occurs in the community, but also in order for us to be able to implement, whether it's programs or advocate for policy change, what are the resources that we have in the community, and how can we have access to these resources to particularly attain a specific goal that the group decides. And so I think having an understanding of resource allocation might also be an important conversation.
No, absolutely. I would agree. So we filled out the doodle to get to this meeting. Does generally the fourth Tuesday work for folks? I would ask, just because given the time that I have to work, if we could push it back a little bit later, but generally does the fourth Tuesday of the month work for most folks in their schedule? If so, you can nod, or Major Life will put up the thumb emoji.
It generally would work. It does not work for me in October. I will be out of town through the 27th of October. So it's that one time it won't work, but.
Okay. So I'm generally seeing
the fourth Thursday in November is, no, that misses Thanksgiving. Never mind. Or is that the fifth Thursday? I mean, fifth Tuesday. That's the fifth Tuesday. The fourth Tuesday of November is the 2 days before Thanksgiving. That might not work too well for.
And
for
we
folks.
can adjust for that one for
Yeah.
sure, because we want to be cognizant of people's family plans. But generally,
Yeah.
so it looks like let's aim for the fourth Tuesday. I will send out another doodle on times, just because 3 o'clock is a little bit close to when I get done with students. And then I think the other question is, do we want to physically meet somewhere? If so, we need to make sure that that space is available at the time and that it's accessible. Do we want to do Zoom and then look at having outside meetings? What works for folks? And this is really whatever works best for your opinion.
I just think Zoom, this is my personal preference, bias. Zoom works out perfectly well for people, regardless of where they are in the community. It's easier to get on Zoom and take care of some business without physically meeting. And physical meeting can take place, obviously, when there's dire need for strategic planning or something like that. But for the most part, I would imagine that Zoom will probably be ideal for most.
Anyone else want to offer their 2 cents?
I would agree with Abraham this once.
Okay.
Same.
Okay. So I will talk to staff about making sure that that's available, and we'll meet on Zoom, and then we can figure out community going events. Okay. So the last piece on our agenda is that the University of Northern Iowa is hosting a Systems of Support conference on Friday, November 18th at the Van G. Miller Center downtown in Waterloo. We have been invited to be the morning panel. So I will get you more information on registration and all of those types of things, but this commission and the work that we are doing is going to be the big topic for the morning. So what we have started to do, why we're having these conversations. So again, that's Friday, November 18th. The panel starts at 8:30 a.m. So I just want to put that on everyone's calendars, because I know that you are all very busy folks, and I want to make sure that I'm cognizant of your time as well.
Do you have an idea how long, Councilman?
We are scheduled for an hour. So say 15 minutes before, 15 minutes after, hour and a half, but yeah.
This conference is offered each year, and it often has a different focus. This year, the focus is on violence and violence prevention, so it's very timely.
Anything else for the good of the group? All right, so just as a reminder, our action items for our next meeting in October will be to come with goals. And then as Dr. Ebonye said, starting to figure out what resources already exist in the community and how those connect in with some of our goals. And then we will go from there in formalizing the process. So Are there any last minute questions? I want to make sure no one leaves here confused. Michelle? You're muted, Michelle.
Sorry, it took me a little bit to get that to pop up. One City does have a resource app. It's something that we have not marketed heavily in the last 2 years because 611 is for healthcare and we knew that needed to be focused on, but it might be something that everyone familiarize themselves with. It's a Google app, so it's translatable in different languages. We did that with Hawkeye Community College. And so it's something people might want to look at to see the resources. It's app.onecitycd.org. I'll put it in the chat.
Perfect. And yes, Dr. Abonia is exactly correct. We want to avoid duplication. If something's already happening, we do not need to reinvent the wheel for sure. Anything else for the good of the group? All right, if you have other agenda items or things that you would like to have discussed before October, please email me. You should all have my email. I will also email you my phone number so that you can call or text me at any time. I am aiming to get the agenda out 1 week beforehand. So I'd like to have agenda items a week and a half before that next meeting. All right. Again, thank you all so much for agreeing to serve. I am very hopeful that we will meet the challenge of the day in terms of making our community and our neighborhoods safer. So thank you all so much for taking the time today.
Thanks, Jonathan, for your leadership. We appreciate it. I really do.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Yep.